When the system breaks down, it won't be variety that saves you. It'll be strategy. Forget the dream of gourmet meals or 20 different snacks lined up on the shelf. Survival isn't about choice, it's about staying alive when the world stops feeding you. And here's the brutal truth. Most of what people panic buy is dead weight. It runs out fast, spoils quick, and gives little return when you need it most. The reality? Stockpiling isn't about filling your pantry with everything under the sun. It's about choosing smart. 5 foods. That's it. If you lock down the right 5, you cover calories, nutrition, and endurance. Anything else? Useless clutter. That's why we're cutting through the noise with the 5 foods you need to survive. They're simple, cheap, and powerful. The core of a survival stash that actually works. Miss even one and you'll feel the difference. Nail all 5 and you'll outlast the chaos while everyone else burns through their emergency snacks. And number 5? It's the one nobody expects, the survival wildcard that could carry you longer than anything else on the list. Number 1, rice. Rice isn't just food. It's the dividing line between people who say they're ready and the ones who actually are. You can flash all the gear you want, stack shelves with fancy tactical MRES, or brag online about your bug-out bag. But if you don't have rice, you're not prepping, you're playing. Period. This is the controversial truth the survival industry doesn't want you to hear. Rice is too cheap, too effective, and too unstoppable for them to profit off of. They can't slap a $200 sticker on it like they do with their freeze-dried stroganoff tubs. So instead, they distract you with gimmicks, colorful packaging, and variety while the real preppers quietly load up on rice. The ones who laugh last aren't the ones with shiny survival buckets. They're the ones with 500 pounds of rice sitting in buckets, airtight, ready to fuel them through a collapse while everyone else is fighting over granola bars at Walmart. Here's the hard math no one argues with. $25 for a 50-pound bag. That's thousands of calories. Actual survival calories, not the snack energy you get from overpriced protein bars. Do the calorie per dollar math, and rice obliterates 99% of survival foods. But watch what happens in a disaster. The YouTube preppers bragging about their overpriced 72-hour meal kits are starving after 5 days, while the rice stockpilers are still eating comfortably weeks later. Think bigger. Rice isn't just a filler food, it's a force multiplier. Pair it with beans, suddenly you've got complete protein, the stuff muscles and brains run on. Add canned veggies, now you've got a full meal. Hell, even if you've got nothing but oil and salt, rice still carries you through. That's why civilizations literally built themselves on rice. Empires rose, armies marched, and populations exploded because of this one crop. Meanwhile, modern survival experts try to convince you that you need quinoa, kale chips, and chia seeds to make it through the apocalypse. Spoiler alert, when the shelves go bare, nobody's fighting over chia seeds. They're fighting over rice. But let's go deeper, because survival isn't just about calories, it's about psychology. In crisis mode, food isn't just fuel, it's morale. And nothing hits morale like a hot, steaming plate of rice. It feels like a meal. It tricks your brain into security. It tells you, you've got this. You can fight another day. Compare that to chewing another cardboard-flavored survival bar. Who's breaking first? The person with a real meal or the one choking down overpriced astronaut snacks? Storage is where rookies blow it. Tossing a 20-pound sack into the pantry and calling it good? Amateur hour. Rice stored wrong will betray you. Bugs, moisture, and rot will get it before you do. Serious preppers know the formula. Mylar bags plus oxygen absorbers plus food-grade buckets. Done right, that $25 sack turns into a 30-year survival investment. That's right. Rice bought today can outlive you and still feed your grandchildren. What else on a grocery store shelf can do that? Chips? Stale in weeks. Bread? Mold in days. Even canned goods can't compete with rice's longevity. Rice is timeless, literally. And here's the kicker most people don't see coming. Rice is already under attack. Prices are creeping up. In the past year alone, global rice prices spiked over 14%, driven by droughts, wars, and export bans. That's not just inflation, that's warning sirens. One more global shock, a flood, a war, a trade collapse, and rice doubles overnight. You think you'll just buy some later? No, you'll be standing in a grocery line fighting desperate people over a bag of rice that now costs $50 instead of $25. Meanwhile, the quiet preppers and the ones you laughed at will be at home, calm, full, and unbothered. So let me be blunt. If your stockpile doesn't start with rice, you're not prepping. You're cosplaying, you're feeding a fantasy, not preparing for reality. Rice is the cornerstone, the foundation, the first brick of survival. Everything else is noise. And here's the irony. The people who think rice is too boring will be the first ones begging, trading, or stealing to get it. And if you think rice is powerful by itself, wait until you see what happens when you pair it with the next food on this list. Because when rice teams up with this underrated survival giant, you don't just survive, you thrive. And that combo is what separates the people who limp through a crisis from the ones who dominate it. Number 2, beans, dry or canned. If rice is the backbone, beans are the muscle, the raw power that turns a pile of starch into a survival machine. And let's cut through the noise right now. If you don't have beans stacked next to your rice, your so-called prep stash is nothing but a Pinterest project. Jerky? Overrated and overpriced. Protein powder? A scam in a shiny tub. Survival meat buckets? Please, that's marketing for people who don't understand how fast meat spoils without freezers and electricity. You want real strength in your pantry? You want beans. Period. Here's the part that rattles people. Beans replace meat. That's not speculation, that's fact. When beans meet rice, you're eating the same complete protein profile you'd get from steak, chicken, or fish, without worrying about rot, refrigeration, or hunting trips you'll never actually take. Civilizations thrived for centuries on beans and rice, while those who chased after luxuries often starved. Beans aren't just a prepper food, they're humanity's fallback, the safety net that carried entire nations through famine, war, and collapse. But here's the problem. Modern preppers keep making rookie mistakes. They load up on garbage, chips, candy, sugary cereal, beef jerky that dries out and costs more per pound than gold, and they laugh at beans because they think they're boring. You know what's boring? Starving. You know what's worse? Realizing you bet your survival on Doritos and protein bars. Beans, on the other hand, don't play around. They fill you up, fuel you steady, and keep you moving when everything else runs out. Dry beans? That's your long-haul arsenal. Stored properly in Mylar with oxygen absorbers, you're looking at 20 to 30 years of shelf life. That's not just food, that's generational wealth in edible form. And if you complain that soaking beans is too much work, congratulations. You've just exposed yourself as someone not ready for survival. The collapse doesn't care if you're tired or impatient. Survival takes effort, and beans reward that effort with unbeatable payoff. Canned beans? That's your instant win button. No soaking, no fuel, no waiting. Pop the top and eat them cold if you have to. In a blackout, canned beans mean you're eating full meals while everyone else stares at their dead microwave, wondering when the power will come back. Spoiler alert, it might not. Preppers who dismiss canned beans as too heavy for bug-out bags clearly haven't thought it through. In an emergency, calories and protein matter more than weight. Ask anyone who's actually lived through famine zones or disaster relief. And the economics? Beans are practically financial treason against the survival industry. A single pound of dry beans costs $1 to $2 and gives you 6 to 8 hearty servings. That's real protein for less than 20 cents a meal. Even canned beans at under $1 a can destroy the so-called value of 10 ES or 300 survival buckets with flavorless dust. This is why the prepper industry doesn't push beans. They can't package them into something flashy and slap a $200 label on them. Too cheap, too effective, too much truth in one bag. And don't think the price will always stay this low. In the past year alone, beans, lentils, chickpeas, pintos, black beans have spiked 15 to 20% in some areas thanks to droughts, shipping shortages, and political chaos. When the next disruption hits, and it will, beans will vanish off shelves faster than toilet paper during a pandemic. That's when people who laughed at beans will crawl back to them, paying triple, begging, trading, maybe even stealing to get what you already stored for pennies. So here's the blunt bottom line. Beans are not optional. They're non-negotiable. They're the muscle in your survival body. Rice alone will keep you alive. Rice plus beans will keep you thriving. Together, they're the single greatest food alliance in human history. And if your prepper pantry doesn't include them in bulk, then your plan isn't worth the shelf it sits on. And if beans are the muscle, wait until you see number 3, the overlooked survival food that keeps your energy steady while everyone else crashes. This one isn't just fuel, it's endurance. And most so-called preppers are criminally underestimating it. Number 3, oats. Oats are the silent assassin of survival food. The underdog nobody respects until it saves their life. Everyone talks about rice, beans, or canned goods, but oats? They're ignored, shrugged off, left behind on the store shelves. That's the biggest rookie mistake in prepping. Because when disaster strikes, the smart ones, the ones who stocked oats in bulk, will have a light, fast, steady fuel source while the amateurs are burning half a day's propane just to make beans edible. Here's the part nobody wants to admit. Most people prep like children when it comes to breakfast. They load up on boxed cereal, Pop-Tarts, pancake mixes, all the sugary garbage that got us fat and lazy in the first place. And in a survival situation, that comfort food buys you a sugar rush, a crash, and zero endurance. You don't need a dopamine hit, you need fuel that carries you. Cereal gives you 20 minutes of fake energy. Oats keep you steady for hours. In survival, energy isn't comfort. It's life. The guy who eats oats at dawn is moving, working, surviving. The guy who eats Lucky Charms is yawning and waiting to die. Versatility is the secret weapon. People think oats are just oatmeal. Wrong. Oats are a blank canvas, sweet with honey, fruit, or milk powder, savory with broth, bouillon, or canned meat. Grind them into flour for bread, tortillas, or pancakes. Even add them to soups to bulk out calories. Oats adapt to what you have. They stretch your pantry without bloating it with 50 other items. Meanwhile, so-called survival foods like protein bars or powdered shakes box you into one boring flavor until you'd rather skip a meal than eat another bite. Food fatigue is real, and it breaks morale. Oats crush food fatigue without complicating your stockpile. And then there's efficiency. Let's get real. Survival isn't just about food, it's about fuel. Rice and beans are amazing, but they cost time, water, and energy to cook. In a world where firewood, propane, and clean water are more valuable than gold, that's a liability. Oats? A splash of hot water and you're eating in minutes. Fuel saved is life extended. And if you're truly desperate, you can eat oats raw. Not fun, but it works. And it works fast. Try eating raw pasta, raw rice, or raw beans. You won't survive long enough to regret it. Storage is dead simple. Rolled oats sit fine in the pantry for 1 to 2 years. Upgrade to Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and you're talking a 10-year shelf life easy. Steel-cut oats? Even longer. Whole oat groats. That's 20 to 30 years of shelf stability if stored correctly. Pro move, seal in smaller vacuum-packed portions so you don't compromise your entire stash every time you open one. That's not just a meal plan, that's insurance you can eat. And let's talk money, because economics don't lie. A 42-ounce tub of oats costs under $5. That's weeks of breakfasts for pocket change. You're eating real fuel for under 50 cents a meal. Compare that to a $12 survival bar that doesn't even last you till lunch. Compare it to a $300 emergency bucket that's half sugar and salt. Prepping companies don't push oats because they can't spin them into a gold mine. Oats are too cheap, too efficient, and too effective. They don't want you to know the truth because if you did, their survival meal kits would collapse overnight. But here's your wake-up call. Oats are already in the crosshairs. In the past year, oat prices spiked 15% in some markets thanks to droughts and shipping chaos. Grain markets are fragile. One war, one export ban, one flood, and oats disappear faster than toilet paper in 2020. When shelves are bare, you'll see people fist-fighting over cereal boxes while you're at home eating oats like a king. Here's the bottom line. Oats aren't hype, they're survival gold. They're fast, light, versatile, filling, and fuel efficient. They keep you sharp, steady, and ready to outwork the competition. Ignore oats and you'll regret it the first morning you wake up hungry, out of fuel, and staring at a bag of beans you don't have the energy to cook. And if oats are the silent assassin, wait until you see number 4, because this next food doesn't just feed you, it transforms scraps and scraps of flavor into something that feels like home. And in survival, that psychological edge can mean the difference between breaking down and breaking through. Number 4, flour or wheat. Flour isn't just food, it's civilization in powder form. And here's the controversial truth. If your prepper stash doesn't include flour or wheat berries, you're not surviving, you're suffering. You can have cans stacked to the ceiling and a bunker full of freeze-dried prepper meals, but the guy with flour is the one living like a king. Because flour isn't about calories alone, it's about morale. And in survival, morale is as critical as water. Lose morale, and you quit. Flour keeps you in the fight. Here's what most preppers don't get. Survival isn't about choking down bland mush until you can't stand the taste anymore. It's about turning scraps into meals. Beans by themselves? Miserable. Beans with tortillas? Suddenly you've got a feast. Oats getting boring? Mix flour and you've got pancakes. Even with zero yeast, zero baking powder, zero fancy equipment, flour transforms into flatbreads that travel easy, fill your stomach, and remind you of home. With yeast or a little baking powder, now you're talking biscuits, bannock, survival bread, and the kind of food that makes you feel human again in the middle of chaos. While your neighbor is spooning cold beans out of a dented can, you'll be breaking bread, literally, with your family. That psychological edge is priceless. But let's tear the Band-Aid off. Flour doesn't store like rice or oats. Toss a 10-pound bag in your pantry and it'll go rancid or buggy in a year, maybe less. That's why rookies fail. They think flour spoils too fast, so they skip it entirely. But serious preppers don't play that game. They go long-term. Seal flour in Mylar bags with oxygen absorbers, and you've stretched its life to 5 years or more. Want to future-proof? Stock wheat berries. Whole wheat in its raw form. Stored in food-grade buckets with oxygen absorbers, wheat berries last decades. Grind them when you need flour, and you've got a fresh, nutritious survival staple on demand. That's not just prepping. That's generational insurance. The Dabbler's stock flour. The Real Survivor's stock wheat berries. And don't ignore the economics. Flour's dirt cheap for now. $5 to $7 for a 10-pound bag. That's pennies per serving. Less than a quarter for a stack of tortillas or 50 cents for a family-sized loaf. Compare that to $300 emergency food buckets that give you powdered slop with a side of regret. And it's laughable. But here's the kicker. Wheat is already under pressure. In the last 2 years alone, global wheat prices spiked double digits thanks to droughts, fertilizer shortages, and export bans. That $5 bag of flour? Expect $15 or $20 if you can even find it. Because here's a little history lesson. When food shortages hit, bread is always the first thing people riot over. Ask any country that's gone through famine or war. When bread disappears, societies burn. So let's be blunt. Flour isn't optional. It's mandatory. It's survival comfort in its purest form. It stretches calories, keeps morale alive, and transforms desperation into normalcy. Without it, you're just scraping by. With it, you're not just surviving, you're surviving with dignity. But here's the thing. Carbs and protein will carry you for a while, but without fat, you're doomed. Your brain, your body, your hormones, they all collapse without fat. That's why number 5 is the wild card of survival food, the one nobody stockpiles enough of. The calorie-dense powerhouse that fuels your body, keeps your brain sharp, and becomes literal gold when the shelves run bare. Number 5, peanut butter or another fat source. Peanut butter is the wild card of survival foods, the kind of item that separates people who think they're prepared from those who actually are. Most people stack up on carbs like rice, beans, oats, and flour because they're cheap, filling, and long-lasting. But here's the truth that many overlook. Without fat, your survival plan has a fatal flaw. Carbohydrates may give you quick energy, and protein repairs your body, but fat is what keeps the engine running. It fuels your brain, cushions your organs, supports your immune system, and even helps keep you warm when the temperature drops. In fact, a lack of fat can be so dangerous that history has a name for it: rabbit starvation. Explorers and wilderness survivors have learned the hard way that eating nothing but lean meat and grains can kill you if fat is missing from the diet. That's why peanut butter isn't just a tasty extra, it's survival gold. One of the things that makes peanut butter so valuable in a crisis is how calorie-dense and versatile it is. A single spoonful that holds nearly 200 calories of fat, protein, and satisfaction. That means a jar can carry you through a day of hard labor without even touching the stove. In a survival situation where meals quickly turn repetitive, rice, beans, oats, repeat, peanut butter brings both comfort and fuel. You can spread it on hot flatbread, stir it into oatmeal for an instant upgrade, or mix it into beans to make them richer and more filling. And if you're on the move, peanut butter doesn't ask for much. No cooking, no fire, no fuel. Just open the jar, scoop, and keep going. That kind of convenience can be the difference between pushing through exhaustion and breaking down when chaos hits. Storage is another area where peanut butter quietly outperforms many other fat sources. Oils often go rancid within months, but a sealed jar of peanut butter can last 1 to 2 years easily, and often longer if stored in a cool, dark place. Rotate your jars as you use them, and you'll always have fresh stock on hand. For survival purposes, the processed, shelf-stable versions are better than the natural, oil-separating ones you see in health food aisles, because reliability matters more than purity when your life depends on it. If peanuts aren't an option, almond butter, sunflower butter, or tahini can serve as substitutes, though none offer quite the same combination of cost, calories, and storage stability. You can also keep oils like olive or coconut in your pantry as supplemental calorie bombs, but peanut butter remains the anchor because of its balance of shelf life, density, and ease of use. Then there's the barter factor, which is where peanut butter really stands out. In a survival economy, everyone will have rice or beans. Those are easy to store. But not everyone will have fat. That scarcity turns peanut butter into a form of currency. Imagine the desperation of people surviving on plain grains and canned vegetables when you show up with a jar of peanut butter. It's compact, universally loved, calorie-rich, and comforting. You could trade a single jar for medicine, candles, or fresh produce. Its value doesn't just come from its nutrition, it comes from the morale boost and the craving it satisfies. In tough times, that kind of item can give you leverage that no bag of rice ever will. What makes peanut butter even more appealing is the cost-to-calorie ratio. A 16-ounce jar usually costs only $2 to $4, yet it delivers close to 3,000 calories. That works out to less than 15 cents per 100 calories, which makes it cheaper than protein bars, cheaper than freeze-dried survival meals, and far more versatile. But here's the warning sign. Peanut crops are under strain. Droughts, fertilizer shortages, and rising costs have already pushed prices up nearly 10% in the last year. When the next crisis hits and store shelves start to thin, peanut butter will be one of the first things to vanish. Families already treat it as an everyday staple, which means it won't just disappear from prepper pantries, it will disappear from everyone's kitchens. Peanut butter isn't just another jar in your pantry. It's a survival tool, a comfort food, a calorie bomb, and a barter item all in one. It gives your body what it can't live without. It lifts your spirits when meals get dull. It provides ready-to-eat energy without the need for cooking, and it's cheap enough now to stockpile without regret. Right now, it's easy to take for granted, but in a true crisis, it will feel like luxury. The people who stack it now will be the ones eating well when others are left scraping the bottom of their last can. And that's the real lesson. Survival isn't just about having food. It's about having the right food, the kind that fills the gaps others didn't think about. Peanut butter proves that sometimes the smallest jar can carry the heaviest weight in keeping you alive. Stockpiling isn't about filling shelves with junk. It's about locking down the few essentials that actually keep you alive. Most people will waste money on snacks and gimmicks only to watch them spoil or vanish when things get bad. The ones who stick to these five, they'll be steady, fueled, and ready when everyone else is scrambling. These aren't nice-to-haves. These five foods are the bare minimum line between strength and weakness, between thriving and barely scraping by. And once supply chains break, no amount of regret will put them back in your pantry. So hit subscribe for more no-fluff survival breakdowns, and tell me in the comments, if you could only pick one of these five to stock deep, which would it be? Stay smart, stay prepared. Survival doesn't start in a bunker, it starts in your pantry.